Statement of Mariah Ainsworth regarding an uncontrollable and cannibalistic houseplant. Original statement given November 17th, 2014. Statement recorded by Dahlia Werrick, archival assistant at the Magnus Institute, London. Statement begins. Look, I never wanted things to turn out like this. All I wanted was a nice succulent to brighten up my flat a little. My roommate, Lisa Hayward, got one too. We thought it would be cute, look after them together and all that. Though Lisa eventually decided on getting a cactus. She insisted it would be easier to look after and that she was too forgetful for anything else. I was, however, very set on my succulent. It was hard to pick one at first because there were so many. This one just called to me. It was pathetic to look at, really. Smaller than the rest and kind of droopy. But I just decided it needed some TLC. Lisa was convinced it would die within the week. But I ended up naming him Angus. I'm not sure why, it just seemed fitting. Things were fine at first. I was able to nurse Angus back to health, and he thrived. It was quite nice to wake up and see him on the windowsill each morning. It was like having a new friend. I even started talking to him sometimes. Lisa worked night shifts at the local 24-hour Tesco's, so she would sleep a lot in the day. The conversations were always one-sided, but in an odd way, it always felt as if Angus understood me. As if somehow he really was listening. It was soothing, especially on days when things got a little bit rough or frustrating. I could just talk things out of Angus. He continued to grow, and I didn't think much of it really. The first time something was wrong was when I found the pigeon feathers. I work at the local hospital, nothing too exciting, I'm just a cleaner. The hours are usually consistent, but I've been working longer recently. One of the other cleaners, Barry Sands, had a nasty fall and broke his leg. We'd all been taking extra shifts to try and cover for him. As such, it meant I was spending a little bit less time at home. A little bit less time with Angus. I hadn't really worried much. Why would I? He was a plant. He was hardly going to get lonely. But it was about 4 days into my new schedule that it happened. When I came home, Angus seemed far bigger than before. I'd even call him bloated. It was like he was just swollen. I tried googling it, trying to see if there was something wrong, but no site I looked at gave any information that could be regarded as helpful. So I just went to sleep and hoped for the best. The next morning, Angus looks just as he usually did. There weren't any signs of the bloating at all. I'd half convinced I just dreamed it up. That was, however, until I found a collection of pigeon feathers sprawled around his pot. It didn't make sense. Sure, pigeons were everywhere in London, but there was no way one could get into my room. The windows were shut. Even if one had gotten in, where was it now? I tried to put it down to Lisa playing some joke on me, but she swore hands down that she hadn't done anything. The pigeon feathers quickly became a regular occurrence as Angus grew bigger and bigger. The pile started to grow larger. I tried not to think about it too much. It had to be Lisa, continuously trying to play a joke on me. I was just happy to see Angus doing so well and being so healthy. I was always proud of him. My droopy little succulent was strong and healthy. If I could look after him, well, I was certain a second plant couldn't hurt. So I brought another succulent and set it down on the window next to Angus. It was shriveled and dead by the next morning. I put it down to the plant having already been sick, but it just kept happening. I knew deep down that Angus had something to do with it somehow. But I couldn't get rid of him. I was attached. Besides, it would be fine. I just wouldn't get any other plants. Then I made the mistake of getting a boyfriend. Luke Sawyer. Luke. Luke was nice and far too good for me. He was a junior doctor at the hospital. We had gotten talking one night and just hit things off straight away. He invited me to drinks, and one thing led to another, and well, let's just say we got very close, very quickly. We were together for over a month before I invited him over to my flat. Until then, there had been something deep inside of me insisting that Luke needed to stay away. Luke shouldn't be anywhere near Angus. It was ridiculous, really. Finally, I managed to put the instinct aside and Luke came over. We had a nice evening and everything went really well. But Luke left in such a rush the next morning, insisting that he didn't feel too well. Well, the flu was going round and I think he was just worried about me catching it. I remember how raspy and wheezy his voice sounded, as if he had a sore throat or as if something were blocking his throat. The cause of Luke's death remains a medical mystery. Thorny vines were found growing inside of his throat, constricting his airways entirely until he had simply dropped dead. No one knew how it happened, but I did. It was Angus. It had to be. That was when I decided I needed to get rid of them. It wasn't an easy decision. I was obsessively attached to him at this point, but I knew there was something wrong with him. So I threw Angus into the black bin outside of our flat and thought nothing of it, until I find him on my windowsill again the next morning. I thought that maybe I hadn't actually thrown him away and it had just been a dream. But the next time I threw him away, he came back then too. He always came back. Every single time. And he was still getting bigger and bigger. Eventually we had to move him into the living room. He was just too big for my windowsill anymore. Lisa wasn't entirely sure why I didn't get rid of him. She didn't believe me when I said he would just come back. Nobody did. Why would they? This wasn't a horror movie. Plants didn't just grow like that. Angus stopped growing after we moved him into the living room, though he wasn't near a window that opened anymore. Still, I felt an unease in my stomach when I watched him, like something terrible was going to happen, and it did. The flat was too quiet when I got home from work. I don't know how I knew, but I just knew Angus had done something. It was never that quiet. Lisa was usually up getting ready for work when I got back, but she wasn't. There was just a horrible, deafening silence. Then I saw Angus. He was bigger than I'd ever seen him before, standing far too tall and far too bloated. Next to him on the ground were a familiar pair of shoes. Lisa's shoes. I don't know how, but he had done something to her. She was gone. My plant had killed her. Look, I'm not expecting you to believe me. Why would you? A killer plant makes me sound insane, but I needed to tell someone before it was too late. I can't get rid of Angus, and it's only so long before, well, I just needed someone else to understand. Statement ends. We did try to follow up with Miss Ainsworth. Thistle and Cloud was struggling enough that John eventually sent him to try and find any police reports. I do like him. He's always friendly with a nice smile. He's not around a lot though. Always busy with the other assistants. Same with Sasha and Martin really. Though I do wish I saw more of Sasha. She's really pretty. Right, back to the statement. Staying on track. I get told I tend to drift off topic sometimes. As it turns out, the reason we weren't able to follow up is because both Lisa Hayward and Mariah Ainsworth are missing. They were reported missing 2 weeks after the initial statement was given due to failing to pay rent. I know how not having enough to pay rent feels. Still don't think I'd run away over it. There were no signs of a break in the flat. Just a broken plant pot off the floor of Mariah's bedroom, with a window just slightly opened. Not enough for a human to fit through, though maybe something else could. Like a pigeon. Anyways, I personally think Mariah might have just dropped a bad tab whilst watching Little Shop of Horrors. Still, do hope the two of them are doing okay. Recording ends.